right, so that brings us to number 9, the superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and our community. It is certainly an honor to recognize our students. We know that during the summer months, there's so much that they're engaged in, whether arts, athletics, academics, or just enrichment through service. But this is an example of just one of those activities. Also, thanks to the parents for all of the travel and the support and the hours that are spent to support our students in their extracurricular activities. We are certainly proud of that. At this time, I wanted to highlight our theme for the 2024-25 school year, and it's growing together, as indicated by our flower pot that our operations team put together. We had a great time at our kickoff, really celebrating working together, growing together, recognizing the importance of our faculty and staff moving forward towards our vision and mission. We are a system operating by 3 critical questions. The first one is, why do we do this? Our vision. Our second one is, how do we accomplish our vision, our mission? And then the third is, what are our outcomes? Our vision is that we love and grow our students. Our mission is that we're focused on academic, social, emotional growth and development, and our strategic plan outcomes, identified by the 24 strategies that we are working on each and every day with our faculty and staff. So we're really excited about celebrating these. We have additional to the 24, we have 3 administrative priorities that we're working on: classroom supports for students and teachers, teacher retention and recruitment plans, and ensuring a safe and productive learning environment for all of our students. And when you think about classroom supports, as you saw, SC Ready scores have been unembargoed and released, and we'll bring to you in a future meeting breakdowns of that data. But we always report these red bars and blue bars throughout the year, the progress of our students on MAP, or measures of academic progress. And our goal is to extend the amount of students that are on grade level. We look at the number in terms of raw data. You can see that at the end of the school year, we had 2,300 students that were not on grade level in math, and we saw how that manifested statewide. We had 2,100 students that were not on grade level in ELA. And so while we're making gains, our goal is to deliver an individualized learning program in a mass education system. Some of our challenges to that, if we look at poverty's impact on performance, we know that it's not causal, but it's correlated. And looking at a median level poverty school in our school district, just putting what we call middle road or average class of performance, there was a class of 21 seats that we examined. Now, when we look at number of seats, the desks may be the same, but the students are different. So when we look at our enrollment and how we break down our classes by class size, when we looked at one class in particular, we found that there were, in this 21 students, there were 8 different performance levels in terms of reading levels. When you look at the number of students in terms of their achievement, you see an even more challenging issue that teacher has before them right now. That of the 8 different reading levels, 86% of those students are below the grade level. And so when they walk in, they're at potentially 5 different achievement bands. This particular classroom has 4. For 6 students of the 21 that are below the 21st percentile, all of those students are going to be held accountable to getting up to the 61st percentile or meets. That is a huge challenge for our teachers, and they're going to need support. In addition to that, they also have the added responsibilities of IEPs and 504s and behavior intervention plans, students who don't speak English, attendance plans, and also addressing the mental health and emotional supports for discipline. A recent study presented by Ed Week said that of the 53-hour that teachers spend in a week working, less than half of that is spent in teaching. And so for us, our challenge ahead of us is providing these teachers and these students supports in the classroom. As we think about our teachers, we need to understand that our teachers are retiring, and there's a new generation of teachers that are moving into our classrooms. Baby boomers in the United States are retiring at 10,000 a day. Our Generation Z teachers, they'll be eligible for Social Security in 2027. So as we lose our teachers, the teachers who were teaching us, understand that our schools and the futures of our schools depend on the Millennial and Generation Z teachers. Not only recruiting them to the profession, but also supporting them so that they can be successful. Our teachers have told us what allows them to be successful and what they seek. Through almost 2 years now of discussing a value proposition for our employees, they said two things. I want to be in a place where I feel valued and I am growing. We actually measured the extent of being valued. While there was not one particular value or appreciation that all of our teachers had, but when we looked at our teachers in our faculty advisory representing all the teachers of the year across all of our schools, what we find is that words of affirmation acknowledging the experiences and the contributions of the professionals is extremely important. And so as our goal is that we bring things up from this board, that we're acknowledging the actual experiences and the contributions of those professionals. Quality time to reflect on their practice and plan instruction, and supports, acts of service, things that would help aid and lighten the burden in teaching and learning. We also have before as our goal to fix and field plan to address the facility and enrollment conditions to ensure safe and productive learning environment for all of our students. And so we have been placing the facility issues and the capacity issues before the community. That information is available on our website. And so the information is available for our community to see what we have put before the public on November the 5th. And so our goal is looking at safe and productive schools. Our future, the students' future is different from our past. And it's our goal to provide them with all that they need so that when we look at the question, are our students prepared for their futures? The answer is yes. So with that, we'll proceed to our June financial updates. And so I'll call our CFO, Ms. Heather Tucker, to the lectern for the June financials.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I present our June monthly financials as of the period ending June 30th. Our first slide here is our revenue ending June 30th. We're right in line with where we were in the end of 2023 with receiving 102% of our expected revenues. And as far as our expenditures, same thing, we are right in line with where we were at the end of 2023, receiving right at 100%, 100.49% of our, expending 100.49% of our expenditures. Now, I will call to your attention that this is not our year-end financials. This is just as of June 30th, so we are still working through our year-end procedures. But these are our financials as of June 30th.
Do I have any questions? No questions.
We'll proceed with Esther.
All right. And next up, we have our quarterly ESSER update. As you all know, ESSER 3 began in 2022. We have here our ESSER 1, which is our CARES Act. That ended as of June 30th, 2021, and we expended all of those funds. ESSER 2, we have a remaining balance of $1,878. This is money that we cannot spend. This is what was left on the table as of ESSER 2. It was all related to things that we had ordered that didn't come in time, and so we did leave a little bit on the table there. But for ESSER 3, as of June 30th, we had $1.45 million remaining, but I can tell you that as of today, we have a plan to spend that, and we have been working towards getting that money down. As of today, we have a remaining balance of $875,858. We still have through September 30th to spend that, and we have a plan moving forward to reduce that amount. We have a little close to $200,000 in addressing learning loss, which is will be reduced in our next payroll, the payroll for 8/31, and we have a plan to spend every penny of that ESSER funds to make sure that we are taking advantage of everything that we have from the federal government. The amendments are due on September 16th, and we will assure that we have every one of these pennies spent.
Any questions on ESSER? Ms. Huddle?
We heard some reports with getting back to school of some HVACs that was not working, and I'm sure some of that's just, repairs, but is any of this $800,000? You said $200,000 for learning loss. Is any of that going to be for HVAC?
I am not 100% sure, Ms. Huddle, and I can get back with you on that. I do not believe it is. The majority of that is addressing learning loss. We have a remaining balance of $637,000, and that is to address needs specifically with our students for things like summer planning. It was summer reading camps, and so the majority of that is going to be spent in this next payroll. And we do have a plan to reduce that last bit that we've been working with Ms. McCaskill in her office. So I do not believe that any of that is for HVAC, but I can get a definite answer for you.
Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, just because my hearing is not so good, and I don't think your microphone is loud enough. I'm sure it's not my hearing. You said it has to be, we have till September 30th?
We have September 30th to spend that money. We have until the end of the year to receive those items. So we can place the orders as long as we have the orders placed and the invoices cut by September 30th. We would like to receive those items in November because we have till the end of December to receive, pay, and finish our reports for this.
So when you say the end of the year, you don't mean like January 1?
No, the end of the federal fiscal year. So.
Yeah. Dr. Ross, I know we haven't heard from Julius in a while. Are there things on his plate that,
So a lot of that has been
learning
incorporated in summer learning loss that we can, and that's kind of how we've hugely supported our summer reading projects, our after-school projects through that. I think one of the issues we ran into, if you look at ESSER 2, that $1,800 is you have to get it, we can order it in time, but the deliverable has to be there in time. And so if you go with the things that are in back order, then we end up missing. So our goal is to get those to things that we can expend. We won't have any back order issues, and we can get those all accounted for before those deadlines hit.
And we have a backup plan for if our initial plan doesn't work, we have a backup plan of what we can do. And if we need to pivot to that, we have till September 16th to submit an amendment to the federal government to say we're going to do something different than what we'd originally planned. And it's all based on the surveys that went out to the public with the ESSER funds. So we will be keeping with that same plan, just pivoting on what we can get in time.
Ms. Barnhart?
This might be for Dr. Ross, but what you just said about, like, if you have something ordered, invoiced and everything by September 30th, and just for some reason, unforeseen to anybody, it doesn't come in by, you said December? Or what's the plan? How does that work?
So that's our backup plan, is we want to make sure that if we place any orders before September 30th, that we have a guaranteed delivery date, that we know that that is in stock. It's not something that's going to be back ordered. Part of our backup plan is Chromebooks, because that's something that we can do. So if we had to pivot, that is kind of our backup plan, because we know we can get those and have them delivered and not run into any issues of back orders or delivery issues. So.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Ms. Tucker.
All right. So speaking of capital, we'll have our Director of Operations, Mr. Dave Wiseman, come forth and give us an update on our 2023-2024 capital update.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Ross, members of the community. Thank you for allowing me some time to speak about the 23-24 capital projects. This was the approved budget, $15 million for the 23-24 capital projects. There's a list of things that we identified at that time that we wanted to address. You'll see the second column talks about the expenditures of what we spend or what we have already encumbered and the remaining balance. The two that stand out with me are our two roofing issues at H.E. Corley and River Springs. And Alan, if you could step forward, I just want to talk a little bit about that. I think it's the next slide. We had a company come in and do infrared on those two roofs because our concern is making sure we understand what we have to deal with. We looked at the original budget for capital projects. To rip the roof off and replace it was going to cost more than what we had budget for. That's just because we didn't understand what everything that needed to be done, or at least I didn't. So we wanted to go in with a different type of product that we're looking at that can fix the problems in those two roofs and still keep it within budget. I have mentioned a couple times at some point we may have to come back for some additional funding, but I think based on our original planning that we should be able to make these two projects into, under budget or within the budget that we allocated. The good thing about the new system, it doesn't require us to have the kids out of the school in order to start replacing some of that. So I just let you talk about the infrared and the program itself.
So as you can see right here, several months ago, we engaged with one of our vendors to do some infrared studies on roofs. And as far as I know, the district has never really went this, I guess, utilized a method like this to find the actual leaks. So what this right here does, it helps us find the where the actual leak is in the building versus just having a roofer up there and just say, hey, look at this roof and try to help us find, where's the water coming into the building. Some roofers can do that and they can do a pretty good job, but when you have an older roof, at times it's a little harder to do that. So we get a little bit more surgical by going this route. We're able to see the wet insulation, and it helps us really pinpoint where the actual leak is at using the thermal imaging. It's a pretty neat way of finding where the leak's at. So we went ahead and had River Springs and H.E. Corley, we had their roofs scanned, and it came back and we found the problematic spots. And here in these two areas, you can see the spots where you'll see I guess is the lighter blue areas, and that's the areas that's holding water. So that kind of helps us drive to the point to where, hey, this is the area that's, I guess, where the insulation's actually wet beneath the waterproofing membrane.
So some of the other projects that we worked on, and we've completed the Irma High School practice field lights. They were installed over the summer, actually turned on the other day for the first time in use. We also had budgeted for the Dutch Fork practice field. We ran into a little problem because as you dig in Dutch Fork, you end up with a lot of rock. So we had to go back out and get an additional quote so we can go in there and dig further, make sure that we got the basings for those lights in there so that it's solid. But those should be done, we're expecting by November. But again, Irma High School has been completed. One of the other things we talked about, in addition to a bus or GPSs and cameras, we started installing the new GPSs in our maintenance trucks. This will allow us to just do some live tracking so we know where our district folks are. So if we have to pull people in to a different school, we can reach out and call the right people to get them who are close to that school so we know where they're at and get them into, say, a school that has a water leak or other issues that we need to address as quickly as possible. We have completed some of the door alarms. We completed 9 schools. We got 9 that are in progress. We've actually already put out the quotes. We should have those starting to install here sometime soon. We went ahead and made sure that we used some of the old 1621 capital funds that I'd brought to you before to make sure we can start addressing these issues because it's just a big expense. There's a lot of doors, especially on the high school area, so we're making sure that we use our money wisely in this area, and then we started using the 23-24 capital. HVAC and automations, as you can see, there's a list of things that we spent on HVAC. I didn't count them all, but there are a lot of questions and concerns that we have about HVAC units. I was at a school today. I'd never seen this type of thermostat because it doesn't have a gauge. It has a red light, and I was rather surprised how does a teacher know what the temperature is? And so, as you can see, we've gone back in some of the schools and upgraded our thermostats or our building automation. This just happens to be Harbison West, so I talked to Dr. Turner earlier and said, as we go through, hopefully, and are in the process of remodeling those walls and stuff, that's an issue that we want to address. If for some reason we can't address it with an upcoming bond, then we'll go back and look at getting that onto the list and do it internally, because part of the issue is the equipment doesn't match necessarily the thermostats because some of the equipment's been replaced, some of it's new stuff, the thermostats are old, so there's a problem with the interchange, but then there's also some of the older units that we just can't get the right pieces and parts in there to get them fixed. But you can see as a total budget, we spent over $956,000 this summer or this last school year replacing heating and air conditioning units. And there's still a lot more to go. We did complete the 5-year master plan. You've all seen the reports. We're still focusing on what areas, the number ones and number twos that we can fix with the current capital budget and progress on as we go through this school year, regardless on what happens with other issues.
Yes.
On the HVAC slide, you commented that some of them have been harder to repair just because of hard to find parts and that sort of thing. Are those on like a short list to be completely replaced?
Yes. Replacing the ones that are unrepairable. I think we got a list.
So we actually have a list of items that are above 15 years old, and some of that equipment is at the end of life point, so that is on a higher priority list. We do have some newer units that we're kind of working through some kinks with the manufacturer. We're just having some issues that we're having to work through some control issues with them.
So on the newer ones that are manufacturer-based issues, does that mean like we're still under a warranty and they're going to replace those? Like, what does that mean?
So we're actually out of warranty with
Okay.
those. They were replaced within the last 2 or 3 years, and we are working to see what we can do with the manufacturer to kind of make things solid. There's a conversion kit that's a couple $1,000s that we have to have installed on these units.
So as we look to replace the ones that are at end of life that still need to be replaced, are we looking at going with the different companies since some of the ones that y'all have right now are
Yeah.
still relatively new, but we're having issues, but the parts aren't available?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
A lot of these, I think, were sourced, I guess, during COVID when it was hard to actually find equipment
Okay.
because lead times were months, if not years, and you had to get whatever was on the shelf or whatever you could get within that certain period of time. Things have gotten better. They're not what they were several years ago, but they have gotten better. So we certainly want to make sure that we're staying within our district standards of equipment.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of going off of that question about HVACs and some of the schools on the list, where are we with Irmo High School? Because I've gotten emails that their air conditioning isn't working, and it was, when school first started, kids were going into really, really hot classrooms, and that there's something with maybe the gym, and there's parts that are like,
So
There's
we had an issue with one of the manufacturers with one of the relatively new units that were installed during COVID, and it was one of the units that had to have.
Can I ask
The
you to speak a
retrofit
little
kits.
bit louder, or can we
I'm-
get this
I'm
mic
sorry.
up? I mean, I'm struggling to hear what they're saying.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know if anybody else is, but Mr. Satterfield alluded to it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
So to answer that question, the Irmo High, the auxiliary gym or that smaller gym, that was one of the units that we are having issues with. We've already been in touch with the manufacturer. We're working with the vendor that installed those units to help us meet with the manufacturer so we can get this that situation resolved, because we have several of these throughout the district. That was, I guess, the issue with the gym. That has been resolved. I guess the manufacturer has to develop a custom harness, and it takes several days, if not a week or two, to build the harness and then ship it to us, and then we have to install it. We have to break everything down. It's very time consuming to make this repair. That's the piece with the gym. Now, overall with the school, we found out we had an issue with the building automation system, and that's really that's the brains of the system that kind of controls everything. So we're working through that. That's just another piece of the overall plant.
Are those projects included in this list, or are they not included in this list? With the Irmo High School?
That list was what we identified 2 years ago, going into the 22-23 capital. These are things that broke within the last 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So they're not covered under that, but we do have some plans to get the funding for that, because we budgeted enough for the 24-25 capital to address these issues.
Okay. Any other questions on this part? Ms. Huddle and then Ms. Barnhart.
How long, I'd have $1 if every time a roof leaks. How long is a flat school roof supposed to last?
I believe it depends on the product, the type of product.
I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I would really, we've got a bond referendum, we may be building some new schools, and, my brain is going, maybe we should stop building schools with flat roofs. But I really would like at another school board meeting to know, like, how long these are supposed to last and how long they're warranted by the builder, just to make sure we're not paying to fix schools' roofs at the builders. And I'm not saying that's the case here, but it bothers me that we have, I got a call from somebody that the roof at Chapin Middle School was leaking. And okay, so anyway, and the other question I have, and Ms. Barnhart may want to weigh in here, but I was told, I've had some HVAC issues of my own, and I was told they're coming out with a new refrigerant. And if you buy a new unit now, it's got the old refrigerant. So I was told you need to do everything you can to keep the one you have running, and don't buy a new one until the new refrigerant comes out.
That's kind of to my point, because I was going to ask, all the old units that we are replacing, are we reclaiming that R22 in order to reuse it for the units that we aren't replacing?
So what we are reclaiming as much refrigerant as possible. So some of the units are R22. We have a lot of 410 units, so we reclaim as much refrigerant as possible.
Okay.
I agree with the roof leaking. The roof was literally leaking during Meet the Teacher night at Chapin Intermediate, as you walked in the door, like pouring down wet, with tons of parents and kids coming into the school. So we do have roof issues in our district.
And this was Chapin Middle.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm saying. This
both.
was the intermediate, yeah.
So I had one other question, and it might be a Ms. Tucker question, but if you go back, there was a slide that said, that one right there, what does 16 to 21 mean?
The years, these are unspent capital that we reclaimed from the FY 16 to 21. A few years ago, we went back and looked at all of the unspent capital funds. Just knowing that we do contingency, some projects are under budget, we reclaimed all of that into one capital project and handled some vestibules, some door alarms, some other items.
I remember that. So is there now a process that, you need to have a tail, but is there a process now going forward that after 2 years or whatever, we're going to keep doing that?
I would recommend, and we haven't talked about it, but we recommend at least 3 years, just because of the lag on projects. And so you don't it's ideally like a paint job we can get done in a year, within a calendar year. A lot of these projects, roofing, HVAC, go into multiple fiscal years. So if you do it under 2 fiscal years, you don't really assess if you're under or over. But if we did it 3 to 5 years, no longer than 5, I think that would be a good time to look at, okay, what was reclaimed and how do we move that forward? I think going from here on, like you said, Ms. Huddle, we'll never have a 16 to 21 gap, but no less than 3, no more than 5.
Okay, we're going to let you get back on track. I know we
Yeah.
kind of hijacked that for a second, and we'll ask questions in a minute. Oh,
Just to let,
okay, all right.
we got that PO cut for the Chapin Intermediate? Or
For
we
the
got-
skyline?
Yeah.
Yes, so it's been,
Yeah, just to let you know, we've got a contractor working on the skylight at Chapin Intermediate. Because I've heard about that for a number of years, so, I'm sorry, where were we at? So some of the school-identified needs are, of course, some marquees. We actually have 4 that are in the process. One of them is Irmo Elementary, but that was because someone knocked it down. But we went ahead and included that into the mix because, as you may or may not know, we actually have to take this to an architect for them to design it. We have to go through OSF and get approval. So it's a lot longer process than I thought we were. So when it says marquee designs, we actually have Oak Point, Harbison West, Irmo Elementary, and one other I can't think off the top of my head, Dutch Fork Middle, that are actually in progress going through. I think we've already got all the architect stuff back. We had to go back out and get additional bids for Irmo Elementary just because of the power requirements that are required for that particular new sign. We added a new heater exchange there, a water heater exchange at Oak Point Elementary. We walked in there a couple of years ago and realized that the bottom was rusting out, so we identified that as an immediate need. We've done some fixed drains. You might have recalled that we had some issues in and around the school, the theater area that was leaking in through the walls. We dug all that up, put in a French drain, and so far, with all the rain we've had in the last 2 weeks, we have not gotten a call on that, so we're excited about that. We've also identified some ADA requirements at Crossroads Intermediate. Again, we're waiting on the design from OSF so that we can go ahead and put that out for bid. And it's basically adding a lift station into the gym or the theater area. As you can see, or you may have not have seen it, hopefully you didn't see the sun as you walked in here today at 6 o'clock, because I think we took care of that issue. We tinted those windows there on the doors. That hopefully will solve our problem. The staff in the school likes it, because out in the hallway, you're not distracted to the people inside, and people inside are not distracted as easily to the people on the outside. And when we looked at it, we were looking at those big windows, and we realized that would block the sun from the hallways. So we got together with the principal, Mr. Frick, and walked through this process and realized we could do the same thing with putting the tint on the doors, and we were able to do that. I was excited about that. And we added a motorized gate at the district office, which is up there by my office. Part of that is because with the new road coming through, we're going to lose some of our driveway, and it prevents us from having to walk out and open the gates and possibly into some traffic. So we were able to get that completed over the summer. Some additional school needs. We've done a lot of painting over the summer and over the course of the last couple of months. Irmo High School Fieldhouse, Crossroads, Ballantown Elementary, CMS, Harbison West, and Dutch Fork Middle. If you look at Dutch Fork Middle, we basically painted the whole inside of the school. It really, really looks good. So as we identify the needs, we're addressing those as we can. It is a little bit easier to get painting contracts in here during the summer. Dutch Fork Middle, again, this is some of the 2 pictures on the left. You may or may not be able to tell how dirty the wall is or how worn the doors are, but if you walk through there now, it literally looks like a brand new school. Some additional needs, we've done some work at Dutch Fork Elementary on the gym, restrooms. Those are the ones that we epoxy.
Yep.
Yeah, We've gone back to a lot of restrooms throughout the district. You'll see this time and time again. We're literally taking the old tile that's in there that's hard to clean because of the grout, and over the years, it's kind of an odor problem. We're epoxying that in, putting in the school colors across the district, so it looks kind of like you've seen the commercials on car garage floors. It looks a lot like that, and it really makes it easier for the staff to clean, makes it easier to wipe all the water, excess water, or whatever's on the floor. So we've done a lot of those. We've done some Irmo Middle School, some restrooms in the cafeteria. Dutch Fork Middle, we've actually done some work in some of those areas. We've done some new flooring in those areas to include Texas granite, which is in progress in the front areas where you walk into the school, where we're finishing that up. Valentine Elementary, we replaced some of the carpet with Texas granite in one of the rooms. And of course, we've done a lot of hallways in the Lake Murray Elementary. Actually, we got that in progress. We got to wait till the next 3-day weekend so we can finish that up, because we actually have to remove the toilets out, put it in, let it dry, and put everything back in place. We've done Dutch Fork High School, some countertops, and I think we got a picture of that. Irmo High School baseball stadium restrooms, and then the restrooms underneath the football stadium. So if you see the picture on the left, you'll see what the floor looked like. You can see the picture in the center. Again, that's Irmo. We got yellow, black, and white specks in there, kind of like the Irmo colors. And of course, we change it to whatever school we're at. And if you can see the epoxy countertop, that's the press box, and it has their logo in it, and of course, along with their school colors. So we've done a lot of fencing this summer. We've looked at Dutch Fork, or we completed Lake Murray Elementary, Nursery Roads, Irmo Elementary, Seven Oaks, Dutch Fork Elementary, which originally wasn't part of our plan, but after talking to the school, if you're familiar with where those kindergarten classrooms are and that playground is up on the roof, they identified some concerns they had about not having a gate there, so we included that into that district-wide project and got that completed during the summer. And again, you can see we did a lot of fencing across the district, Chapin High School, H.E. Corley, that back road where the car rider line starts. We got a gate installed in there so that we can control the traffic a little bit better during the school days. Chapin Middle, although it's a fairly new school, we had some fencing problems. In and around the basketball courts, students have a tendency when they're chasing the ball not to see the fence. So that got loose pretty quick, so we were able to get that fixed over the summer. And the driveway that runs between the school and the basketball court, they've had several instances where cars, lost parents, or buses have gone down through there. So we added gates to the front and the back so that we could close that off when the kids are out there and keep them a little bit safer. We still got some contingency plans. We worked with DHEC, required us to replace the grease drains at Harbison West and Crossroads. So we were able to get that done this summer. It was part of our contingency. As you can see, it was $168,000 that we had to commit to that. Again, if it's a requirement, once they say it, they give you so long to fix it, and if you don't fix it, you can't operate the kitchen. So we obviously made that a priority. With technology, you can see the many projects that they've done across the district. I like the fact that we're adding more and more cameras to the district and some storage systems for the video camera systems. And we upgraded their vehicles so that as they move this equipment around from building to building, they have something that they can work with and easily store the equipment in there overnight and move it a little bit easier. HVAC updates. So this is what I'm going to let Alan talk to you this. This is what he mentioned earlier about we're identifying the end of life for our HVAC systems, and I'll let Alan walk through that with you.
So as we engaged with our HVAC contractor, we had to compile a list of information of all of our equipment across the district that also included their installation dates or when the equipment was made. So we really wanted just to kind of see across the district how everything looked. And from the chart, you can see just the overall average for each school. You can see the midpoint. We're showing about 7.5 years, and overall industry standard is about 15 years for the average piece of equipment. Our goal, of course, is to extend that as much as possible. We would like to take that as far as we possibly can. But just for the visuals, and so everyone can see exactly where we are, I just want to show everyone this is where the district stands with our equipment.
And one of the things that you may or may not realize, I had to ask Alan this, if you look at Dutch Fork High School and Dutch Fork Middle School, in theory, Dutch Fork High School was built first. You'd think their equipment would be older, but we've added a new science and field house in there, so you put new equipment in there. We've done a lot of replacement there. So this captures all the units that we've replaced, so we have an understanding of the average across within that school. Again, one of the things with our new preventive maintenance program is try to extend the life of this equipment. And Ms. Barnhart, you pointed out that there's new refrigerant coming in there. Apparently that stuff is pretty valuable. The R22 that we have is getting hard to find, but we are capturing that so that we can use it in some of the older units. But as we go and identify new units, we're looking and making sure that we have the right refrigerant and the right plans to put that into place and capture that. So it gives you an idea of where we're at across the board, but it's you got to understand that every time you add a new HVAC or new wing or new thing within the system, or we're able to retrofit or upgrade, it impacts the overall life of what we can do with the school. So ideally, our preventive maintenance plan is going to try to get it up to 20 years, but the problem with that also is in 20 years, there'll probably be something new out there. And then again, we got to look at the controls across the district, because we're finding a lot of schools have older equipment and older controls, which makes it difficult for the teachers. So pending any questions?
I'm going to ask Mr. Scully real fast if he still has a question. I know you were on the tail end of.
Yeah, just real quickly, I want to back up to the yellow and white original slide, and then I'll come back to the HVAC thing. But on the cost for H.E. Corley and River Springs that are listed as the expenditures, the 4.9 and 6.4 thousand, is that the cost of the scans, the thermal scans that were done? So the remaining balance is going to go towards the repairs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you expect those balances to cover the required repairs at this point, now that you have the scans to know what?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then just on the last slide about the HVAC, I guess my question there is, and is any of that, in your opinion, is any of these, what we're seeing with our HVAC units, it's not abnormal, right? I mean, we've experienced extraordinary heat in this area, and based on the time frame and the life cycle of the units, I mean, does our community need to be concerned about, do we have faulty equipment, or is it just kind of expected in the normal life cycle of the units?
From what we're seeing, it's pretty expected outside of maybe some of the newer units. I think that was just, maybe they had a design flaw, and they now have a workaround with a new wiring harness.
And I know it's unfortunate that they all seem to be happening at the same time, but I mean, at my house, we bought our HVAC 2 years ago, and it had a breakdown last year, or at the beginning of the summer. My in-laws 3 years ago, and theirs is now out and having to be repaired significantly. So it does, I mean, this is equipment, it's a machine that's gonna break down, unfortunately, but I don't want the community to think that we went and recklessly purchased bad units or anything like that. I mean, this is, for the most part, unfortunate, but not abnormal.
I would say that's correct. And as we look at what we're putting into capital, and then what we had last year, and then what we've requested this year, I think we've requested 1.5 million for the HVAC upgrades to also include equipment and the building automation controls. Given the size of our district, the amount of equipment we have, that will help us reduce the what we're seeing with the equipment that's above 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, and you may have said this, I may have missed it. Equipment EOL, end of the line, that's what it stands for?
In the end of life. Because at a certain point in time, they're going to stop making parts for equipment. So
Yeah.
you're going to get about 15 years. And there are going to be some things like capacitors and compressors that you may be able to go further than just 15 years. But at some point, you're not going to be able to,
Sure.
maybe like refrigerant. Yeah, there's just, you're not going to find some pieces of equipment or parts for R22 units anymore. It's just, they don't make them.
Now, Dr. Ross, do we have a contract now with a company for, now, is this for service and filter change and
That's correct.
normal
So
maintenance?
we have a contractor to help us. We have 3,700 units of HVAC in our system. We have 3 employees to work it. So with all of those demands, we have to contract outside of those 3 employees. So I guess what we're trying to show you is that these are the average age. We have a lot of units that are way past end of life. As you said, you know, when some of the refrigerant issues are there, parts issues, and we have some issues that are just not working.
Yeah.
So other units have to kind of pull the weight for that, as Mr. Scully said, and with the humidity, the heat, they're working kind of extra overtime. So this is just giving a picture of what it's going to take. We would love to be at midpoint at all of our buildings. I think one of the most, you know, we heard about the complaints at Irmo High School, getting the small gym correct, but even the old building. We have a very unique system that we're trying to operate there because it's a building stacked on top of a building. So the way that we run heating and air is just very unconventional.
I was just curious, what kind of feedback do we get from this company that provides this service? I mean, are they telling us, look here, folks, you're, you know, EOL, you got more EOLs than you realize?
So they do provide feedback whenever there's equipment that is, so that we have like full coverage at the high schools. If the equipment is no longer repairable, then they're going to say, hey, at this point, we can no longer repair this piece of equipment, and now we have to replace it. And if they see other pieces of equipment as they go through the preventive maintenance, then they will provide that information also, saying, hey, we're seeing this maybe at a middle school or elementary school, that there's some things that they want us to go ahead and take care of before it becomes a major problem. Then we'll address that.
Yeah. And I was just curious, is this slide available to teachers? Do they know which schools are end of the line?
This was just some information that we were able to put together
I'm
last
just kidding.
week.
I know this, teachers will complain about just being too hot, and some of the schools a lot of them are at the end of the line, so thank you.
I have a question real fast, kind of speaking to these projects. I know that I think your first slide was a chart with the 23-24 capital projects, and on it kind of goes through the status that they're in progress, or they're complete, or they haven't been started, or they're ongoing. Ongoing and in progress, the same thing, kind of. But so my question regarding this document right here is, what is your working document for, like, every year we have a new capital budget? So we have a 23-24 capital budget, and these are the projects that we're working on, we're trying to get through. But do you have a 22-23 capital budget document that you're comparing against this to see that we're getting everything done? I mean, The reason I'm asking is it is very easy for some of these projects to get lost and the money not to get spent. And as different people are touching the projects and the money's being touched by different CFOs or different, there's different boards and there's different employees working on them. For me, it's a little bit hard to say, okay, well, we've completed everything in 22, 23, because I don't think I've ever really seen one of these where we've completed everything. There's always something that we're kind of working on, so I'm just trying to be able to conceptualize all of these projects that we're doing on our $15 million annual capital budget.
I have a little blue book over there on my table that literally tracks money all the way back to 2016, the old.
Is that possible to be shared on our website or something to that effect where I mean, board members definitely, I would think we would want to
It
see.
kind
if
of
you
goes
already
back to
work-
what,
and I know Ms. Huddle has asked about asking the previous years. You said that was kind of going to be discussed tonight as well. Those spreadsheets and project lists.
So we would like, because this is something that it currently, we can say as of this date, because that number is changing daily. So unless it's like locked into your actual account, it's changing daily. I think for us, we need to just be able, what I would like is we have these for each capital expenditure. It sits in one master capital account broken down into years. We would like we have to do the reclaiming, so that's why we had the issue from 16 to 21. But to maybe just create a policy that every 3 years we would see how many of these are completed. Because a lot of these capital issues can't be done in the summer or within the budget season. So if we can capture it over 3 years, I think it would be helpful. But what we can do is go back and provide this document for the last few capital years and put that on our website so that the public can see where we are on these.
I think a policy would be great, but I also think that there's got to be some kind of working document that you're looking at, and being able to kind of see that is helpful as we're looking at how, especially as we have more and more projects come up. I mean, I don't know. And Ms. Huddle, I know that you had questions about the 22.
That's why
I asked if that was going to be discussed today, and so I was.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because it's kind of a recurring thing that, I mean, it's just the way things work. It's just like if you had a budget to fix things on your house, you're not going to get to all of them. Sometimes you're waiting on a contract or whatever. But that was really why I asked, because we had that issue before that it had kind of accumulated over, and that was like before all of us, right? So, and just to see like how much were we kind of behind, because the other thing you might decide to do is something bigger's popped up, right? You budgeted for this. It's kind of like your house too, right? Maybe you weren't going to repair the roof, you were going to do something else, and now the roof's leaking. So it might be an opportunity to review periodically where we are, and if y'all need our approval to move money that's available from something that was originally thought to be important to something that now may be more important.
All right. Yeah, Ms. Barnhart, and then I'll come to Mr. Satterfield.
A couple questions. Approximately how many RTUs are 15 years or older?
I would have to go calculate that information.
Okay. If you,
Repeat both of the question and the answer.
how many RTUs, mean rooftop units, are 15 years or above? So at that kind of end of life stage or above, specifically the rooftop units. Because, I mean, I know there's all kinds of different ones. Like at Irmo, there's one like in the middle of the 2 stories and stuff, but I was just curious about the rooftop units. Second, the new refrigerants that are coming in, not to, freak anybody out or anything, but they are considered mildly flammable in some certain instances. Are we making sure that there are things in place, just precautionary measures for that?
I have not studied a whole lot about them, or I'm not up to date on the new refrigerants. I've heard a little bit about them. I'd have to speak with my energy and mechanical manager to get additional information about that.
just, you know, they've been phasing this out since like 2013 or something, so it's a whole process, trust me, I have to deal with it, as well. And then with the bids and stuff, like we said, you have 3,700 some odd units and 3 people working on them, and without the, company that we're using, are we getting bids from other places to try and kind of alleviate some of the pressure on the
I think
one?
the contract, we bid out this contract, and we had multiple groups bid on it. We took the lowest qualified bidder on that one. So I think to get other groups in that contract, we may have to.
We do have to bid some of that out to other vendors to keep it fair and consistent with the purchasing requirements. So although there is one vendor that services our equipment and advises us as they see things, when we have to replace units, there are bids that go out, and we have to use multiple vendors across the district. So I can't remember how many there are, but there's a multitude of different ones, because some of them don't work on trains, obviously. Some of them work on different units, the Mitsubishis and the Daikons and stuff like that.
Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, I was going to just make a suggestion. I think it's a great idea to get sort of a progress report on how, what kind of, and I know that needs certainly do come up during the school year. It might be a good idea too, Dr. Ross, to, when you get to that point to where you want to give an update or report, is to explain how this process works. I'm sure it's similar to back in the day when I was involved with it, but how capital projects come about, how they're requests, how they're prioritized, and things like that. And that would just be informative to the board, so they'd have a little better understanding of how that whole thing works. Just a suggestion.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the superintendent's report, and we stand for any questions.
Any other questions for the superintendent report as a whole? Ms. Huddle?
I had a question going way back to the reading scores, and I was looking through this big old thing we got from the SCSBA, and they were talking about third grade retention and summer reading camps, and I was just wondering, is that new? Are those a big deal, those changes for us?
I know we've always, that's one of the reasons we do our summer reading camp, is with the Read to Succeed legislation. That was the beginning of where the third grade retention would come in, and then Ms. McCaskill and her team, they meet with those families. They have the green sheets. And so you want to kind of explain how we handle the third grade retention piece?
Sure, and I think you asked if there were any changes in that, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I was reading it, and it said that students who are unable to comprehend grade level text and who qualify for mandatory retention must be enrolled in a summer reading camp. And I was wondering, is that a change, or has it been that way?
It used to say does not meet 1, which is the lowest. You take the does not meet, and there's a lower tier, and there's a tier 1 and a tier 2, excuse me. And so it used to be that. Now for this coming school year, it's all of our does not meet students. So whenever you look at that, it will be a larger percentage of our students that will be mandated to go to summer reading camp. If they have a good cause exemption, they will not be mandated to go, but the good cause exemptions are much less than what we had because some of those have been taken away. So that number is going to increase, plus they're beginning now to say that we have to include first grade, I believe is the grade that they've put in there for 25, 26, or 24, 25 school year. We'll have to include first grade, and then each year after that, they're going to begin adding grade levels. So that's going to increase the size. What funding's going to come with that, we'll have to wait and see.
So a follow-up is just, I guess I'm just worried that parents find out kind of in May, right? So is there some kind of education that goes along with that to the parents whose children do not, who appear they're going to have to, okay.
So I can explain that. So as curriculum nights are happening now for second and third grade families, We have a presentation that every teacher does. It's actually a voiced-over presentation, so the teacher doesn't have to do it themselves. It's already just something for the parents to watch, talking about Read to Succeed and what the requirements are and all of that. Come January, as soon as our map is given in December, we know what that cut score, we will know what that cut score will be soon. Used to be 177. That will change because with it being all of does not meet, it's going to be lower than that. So, but 177 was the cutoff. So any child that meets that criteria in January based on our winter map, we're mandated to have a conference with that parent. They have to sign off. They're told the dates of summer reading camp right then, and they know that their child is at risk for having to attend camp. And then we keep up with that throughout. And then, of course, we actually make some decisions based on spring map to go ahead and do some invites of those students who are showing that they're at risk. Then the final list doesn't happen until, I mean, it really is the end of May. But knock on wood, typically we get the list within 4 or 5 students. So by looking at MAP, we typically have invited the students that should be invited. And then it's not that last minute. There are always a few, but for the most part, it's taken care of.
Any other questions? All right.